Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 29 of the Audible Farm podcast. I'm your host. My name's Peter Stockdale. This week I'm sitting down with royalty. You heard me right. I've got the Iowa Pizza King in the house. I am sitting down with Kyle Peterson, and we talk about why he loves pizza so much and why he's got a Facebook page called the IA Pizza King Reviews. We discuss a lot of other things too. We come to find out that we have the same things in common as far as musical tastes, and a lot of our entertainment value dollars go towards the same things. For example, I spent a lot of years watching pro wrestling, and so did he, and somehow the two of us have never really crossed paths until recently. We went out and grabbed a slice of pizza at the local pizza place, I guess, from where I'm from. It's called Pasquale's. I love the pizza there. I always have. It's been one of my favorites, and we discuss it in great detail. So this is episode number 29 with Kyle Peterson. He calls himself the Iowa Pizza King. We talk about his social media. I drop some links down below, so if you want to follow him, go ahead and follow him. But I hope you enjoy this interview because I had a blast sitting down with him and grabbing a slice. So episode number 29, Kyle Peterson.
It's the Audible Farm podcast with your host, Peter Stockdale.
I'm sitting down today with Kyle Peterson, and you are better known online by your internet personality as the Iowa Pizza King.
Correct.
And what's the deal with that? Why start with the Pizza King thing?
Yeah. Well, I eat pizza all the time. Have since I was a little kid. Just as most kids, you love pizza, but it was really a passion for me. And one day I was at work with a buddy, and we were eating lunch, and he says, "Hey, Kyle, you eat pizza like every single day.
Yeah.
Why don't you start like blogging or at least keeping a track of it?" And I said, "You know what? It's a good idea. I wouldn't mind having that just for myself." And so I just put a page, or not even a page. I just kind of put it on my personal Facebook page and started putting reviews up of places I've been to, a way to kind of keep track. And, for a lot of years, people would ask me, "Hey, what's the best pizza place?" They knew I eat pizza all the time. So that's what started it, and then kind of went from there.
Yeah. So not too long ago, I saw somebody had shared the IA Pizza King Facebook page, and so I gave it a like because you never know what's going on the internet, so you might as well check it out. And aside from being a good place to find where the good pizza's at, anywhere in Iowa for the most part, it's sometimes you got a pretty comical take on some of the pizzas. One specifically was, I think you went to a baseball game, and you said the pizza was like 2 out of 10 slices. But your daughter was like, "No, this is amazing pizza. It's like 8 out of 10 at least." And you were like,
Yeah.
"Well, you can pick and choose who you want to believe on this one, I guess."
Yeah. Well, and it goes by, when you're a kid, you have a terrible taste, probably in everything, but pizza specifically. I remember as a kid, Little Caesars was across the street from my elementary and junior high, and I would go over there all the time and eat pizza. And I still to this day say Little Caesars used to be way better back in the day. But you go there now, it's horrible.
It's absolutely god-awful.
It is garbage.
Yeah.
However, my 8-year-old daughter absolutely loves Little Caesars. She longs for the summertime because we would get it to go and we take it to a park and eat and play at the park. And that's what, hey, when I was a kid, I wanted to do that too. But
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, that I think that was at Omaha, that CHI Arena or something. Where that pizza, and it was god awful. It was horrible. I mean, call a spade a spade. It wasn't Pizza Ranch bad, but it was pretty bad. But my daughter, this is a 10. Oh, this is a 10. She loves it. So yeah, it's all you believe who you want to believe.
Yeah. So most of your reviews, I see a lot of them are from the Des Moines area. That's where you reside.
Correct.
But we were talking a little bit before the podcast how your job allows you to travel.
Correct.
So you kind of knock out 2 birds with one stone as often as you possibly can, and get some of the best pizza elsewhere in the state. Let's start with the Des Moines area. I mean, I don't want to just start calling out the best pizza places and certifying it Audible Farm certified, but where are some of your favorite places in the Des Moines area?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Des Moines I know real well. It's my backyard. I grew up in West Des Moines as a kid, so, you think of places in West Des Moines, you think of the Tavern, Joe Corso's Pizza way back in the day. That was about it. And Pizza Hut, I always, back in the day too, Pizza Hut, Domino's, all those were great.
Yeah.
Quality has went down over the years, but
Yes.
the Des Moines area has so many good pizza places. It is a sleeper pizza. People think of the New York, the Chicago, even Detroit. But Des Moines has a lot of good ones. And, it's Midwest style in Des Moines for the most part. A cheesier pizza with a lot of cheese, generous on the toppings. I guess I can go. Anybody can check the Iowa Pizza King on Facebook out if they want. I got my top 10 list from last year. But,
Yep.
the big winner last year for me was Wins in Norwalk. They also have a location in Indianola. But just great people there, but great pizza that stands on its own. I mean, it's a great pizza. The crust is something out of this world. Graziano sausage I'm a huge supporter of the Graziano sausage.
Yep.
I'm kind of, I always, as most people that know that follow me, but I always start my pizza reviews with sausage pepperoni. I use that as a control, how I judge a place.
Yep.
And I'm getting off on a little bit of a tangent here, but sausage, I don't know if I like sausage. I like Graziano sausage.
Oh, yeah.
But other sausages, I mean, sometimes they're just straight out hot garbage. Like sometimes you get some of those frozen little balls and they just throw them on a pizza. I mean, they're horrible. I'd rather just not have sausage pizza. But
I am totally in the same ballpark as you. I almost never order hamburger or sausage at almost any pizza place based on exactly that.
Yeah.
Because I just hope that they're actually going to put ground beef on it or actual ground pork with
Yeah.
seasonings instead of like sawdust, soy, and whatever byproducts and just pitch it on a
And
pizza.
there's a lot of pizza places that I swear they get like Jimmy Dean sausage out of the freezer and they just cut that up on their pizza. And it's like, I don't want breakfast sausage on my pizza.
Yeah.
I need like an Italian. I always go on a lot of my reviews. I say it was missing that factor of love. It was missing the love in the pizza.
Yeah.
And that's truly what I think Graziano's gives. I wish I was getting paid by Graziano's. I put them over all the time,
Yeah.
but they truly are. It's my favorite sausage I've ever had. There's some other good ones out there that make a homemade sausage. There was Michael's in Grinnell I went to recently.
Cool.
They had a really good sausage. It wasn't quite Graziano sausage, but it wasn't like I was talking about the breakfast sausage. It was a good homemade. Whenever I see a homemade sausage, it's usually better because it's got that love to it. They're making it homemade.
Yep. That's
So
100%.
That's Wins Norwalk is a real good one. The Mad Meatball, another good one, kind of over by Principal Park there off of MLK.
Okay.
They got a good pizza too. I love what else is good. I mean, there's so many in Des Moines. There's one place, Pie 5, which is a chain. I don't know if everybody's heard of it, but I always call them kind of the Subway pizza places. There's Pie 5, there's Blaze.
Yep.
A few of those where you go up to the counter, you make your own. Well, the Pie 5 in Ankeny is great. It's right down the road from my work, which is nice too.
Yeah.
But they do a really good pie there for being a chain place. It's
Yeah.
always consistent. They always make it just how I like it. So a little bit of everything.
That's awesome. Let's start talking crust wise. You and I had a small discussion beforehand. I
Yeah.
wanted to save the meat of the discussion
Yeah.
for the podcast, but let's go thick or thin crust or deep dish
Oh, boy.
or what are we talking here?
Oh, boy.
Most people understand like on the big chains, you got like your Pizza Hut, you got your
Yep.
Godfathers, you got your Domino's. A lot of that's like I would call it like a thicker crust.
Yeah.
But there are some places with thin crust, and what's your take on the whole?
It's funny is out of all the chains, I'll say Domino's super thin crust from Domino's is a sleeper. It is a sleeper hit. It is one of the best pizzas. I don't know if I wouldn't say best pizzas ever, but it's up there. It's way better than you'd think it would
Yeah.
be. It's definitely worth a visit. If somebody out there, listeners, haven't tried it, you got to try that super thin from Domino's. That's really good. But I like a thin crust, and I don't know if that, once again, goes back to where I was raised in Iowa.
Yeah.
Midwestern pizza is a very cheesy pizza,
Yep.
good toppings, and traditionally thin and bar cut is preferred, the square slices.
Yeah.
Love that, but I'm all in on thin. It's got to be a thin. I'll eat anything. I like all pizzas, but thin is what's in for me.
Nice. Yeah.
And I do like a pan. When I think of pan, it's like I'm chasing that dragon. I'm trying to get back to the old days of Pizza Hut pan pizza.
Yeah.
In the 80s, that was a gold standard. I mean, I don't know if I just didn't know any different or what, but that was so good back then.
Yep.
There's a place in Polk City called Papa's Pizzeria that's really good. And
Oh, cool.
And they have a pizza that tastes a lot like that old school Pizza Hut flavor on the pan.
Nice.
That's probably the best pan I've had in a long time. And then as far as deep dish, boy, a lot of people know I'm not a deep dish fan. I think it's basically lasagna.
Yeah, we had talked about that.
It really is. I mean, I'll eat it. I don't mind it. I usually scrape some of this. I don't need, 3 inches of sauce on the top. That's just overkill to me.
Yeah.
So I'll scrape some of that off, but I'm not a huge deep dish guy. My favorite Chicago place, kind of getting off again, is a place called Pequod's. I've been recommended that to go there forever. I finally went there last year. It changed my life. It's not really a deep dish. I consider it more of a pan.
Yeah.
And, the art of a good pan, I think, is the hardest one of any. I think a lot of places can do a thin crust. A lot of places can do a deep dish. But to get that middle sweet spot of a pan is tough. There's not many places that do it.
Yeah, I could totally pick up on that. Like the thicker pizzas, I always felt like a lot of places overcompensated where it's just like your crust is now 1.5 inches thick and your toppings are so thin that it just doesn't compensate for the amount of bread.
And it drives me nuts with the deep dish because let's say you get there on a Friday night, you're going out with the family for a deep dish. You get there, you might have to wait, 20 minutes, let's say, to sit down and order. And then you got another hour to wait for your pizza. I know a lot of people say, oh, you can call ahead and do that. But I'm not calling ahead my pizza. I want to go in and have the whole experience.
Yeah.
And you're sitting, all of a sudden your meal's 4 hours long when you're waiting for it to cook. And
yeah, I recall being on Lakeshore Drive in Chicago a handful of times and going like, let's go get some deep dish. And then it's like you forget. They're like, 45 minute to an hour and 20 wait for a deep dish. And you're like, by the time it's all said and done, you're not even hungry. You don't even want the pizza anymore.
And they always seem to sucker you in with, well, the pizza takes an hour, so you might want to get an appetizer. So I'm like, I'm really hungry. I'm going to get an appetizer, a salad. You're full by the time the pizza comes.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I always make the mistake. I usually always get a large pizza no matter where I'm at because, hey, I'm going to take some leftovers home if I need to.
Yeah.
I love cold pizza too. So deep dish, I'll order a large. Well, after you've had your appetizer, you've had your salad, and you've had 1 or 2 pieces, you're pretty much spent. And then you're sitting with 5 extra slices or whatever.
Yeah, it weighs like 12 pounds.
And a deep dish, as most know, are a pretty pricey pizza. I mean, you get to $40, $50 easily, depending on how many toppings you like.
Yeah.
So
I'm kind of on the same spectrum as you. I don't know why I prefer the thin crust. I don't know why I prefer the bar cut. It's
I think it bred into you. If you're from Iowa, Wisconsin, Minnesota, it's kind of the standard in my travels I've seen.
I mean, it's to the point where I cut frozen pizzas in bar cuts now, and I don't know if it's just more fun to eat that little corner piece or what the deal is.
I don't know what it is. As a kid, I don't remember ever having bar cut style pizza. The chains obviously don't cut it that way.
Yeah.
So that's probably why. But something tastes better in a bar cut. I don't know. It goes back to that love, that secret ingredient. It's easy to cut it into 8 slices, but to truly cut a good bar slice is a little science to it. I'd say.
No kidding.
So
you and I actually just recently went to Pasquale's here in Humboldt, and I got to sit down with the pizza king himself, Kyle Peterson, and we noshed on a couple pizzas while we were there. And Pasquale's does the bar cut. Pasquale's is, for those that don't know, Pasquale's is a pizza chain. Well, it's just a single restaurant now, but it's in Humboldt, Iowa, and that's where it started. And they've got frozen pizzas. They send them all around the state. You can find them in most of your grocers.
I think most
freezers.
people know them from their frozen pizza.
Yeah,
especially in the Des Moines area where. Growing up as a kid, I worked at Hy-Vee for a lot of years, and that was a staple in the frozen section there. And they used to demo at my store every Saturday, Sunday, and I don't know how many breakfast pizzas and pepperoni pizzas of Pasquale's I've had in my life, but it's probably over 1,000. Yeah. And I'm not even exaggerating by that. It's easily, and that's how I got to know them. And then, outside of college or so, 2004, I went to Iowa State, and I'd make pilgrimages up here for the pizza, and it's been probably a year and a half since I've been to Pasquale's, at least since I've been doing the pizza gig reviews. So I was like, I need to get an official one in here, and this just worked out to meet out and hook up on some pizza.
Yeah, no kidding. It's something else that might just be a Midwestern thing, but just like sitting down and eating pizza with somebody is just
Yeah.
It just feels like a nice homey thing to do,
You know, there's more to it than, let's say, if we went to McDonald's or you went to even like a burger place, like a Fuddruckers or something. It's just something more about pizza. It's, that's one thing I do long for and I miss is that old school pizza feel of the restaurants. You think of the 80s Pizza Hut. I always go back to that. They'd always have that sit down tabletop Pac-Man or whatever in there, and arcade games. And that's a lost science. There's not really many. One place up in Marshalltown called Zeno's. They have an arcade in there, and it's got that old school pizza feel. It's a good pizza restaurant when you can smell the pizza outside. Pasquale's has that.
Yeah.
You park and you can immediately smell the pizza coming through the air.
Yeah.
Zeno's has that when you're walking down the sidewalk. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just baked into the air in the building because they've been doing them for so long.
It could be.
It's a great feeling. It puts a smile on my face every time.
So yeah, it's not necessarily just about going and grabbing a slice for you. It's an all-encompassing kind of deal.
It's the experience. I'm sure you're familiar with Big Tomato. You probably have Big Tomato a million times. Late night staple in Des Moines. Something about that experience. There's just something about it. A late night, it could be the worst pizza ever, but somehow at midnight, 1 a.m. or whatever, it's the greatest pizza ever. I don't know what it is.
You want to hear my Big Tomato story?
Oh, I'd love to.
All right. So one day after a show, everybody in the band that I was in decided, let's go to Big Tomato and grab a slice. So I'm the first one there. I pull up outside, and there's two guys in a fist fight outside. And so I said, I'm not going to Big Tomato. So that's the only time I've ever been to Big Tomato was I pulled up out front, and there was two guys fighting. And cops pulled up and everything. I just haven't ever been back.
You've never really?
No, seriously.
Holy cow.
And everyone just says it's like the greatest thing ever. And I don't know why. I just never went back.
I actually saw a guy get stabbed out front of Big Tomato one time, probably 2005 or 6 maybe.
Shouldn't laugh, but
the guy got shanked right in line, and he fell to the side, and the cops came and everything, but I kept going in line. I wasn't scrambling. It gets to be a long line at night. I'm not giving up that spot for anything.
Yeah.
I went there just recently, 2 weeks ago, and I was so disappointed. For some reason, a magical slice there is barbecue beef Alfredo. It sounds terrible. I'm not even a big Alfredo on pasta. I don't like.
Yeah.
But somehow the barbecue beef, the barbecue Alfredo taste together is magical. It is one of the greatest slices I've ever had. It sounds horrible. It's amazing.
It honestly does not sound good.
I don't know how I even tried it in the first place, but my 8-year-old daughter, super picky, she tried it and fell in love with it. I mean, it's one of those things you got to try. So, unfortunately, 2 weeks ago, it was off the menu. So, that worries me a little bit. So, hopefully it goes back on.
Hopefully it didn't disappear forever.
You can order it if you order the whole pizza. But, the slice game is where it's at Big Tomato.
Oh, yeah. I'm imagining Big Tomato being a lot like a Mesa Pizza kind of place where you just walk in and most of it's by the slice, but like you said, you can order a whole pie if you want one.
Yep, you can. I think they do a lot of slice business. There's usually 2 pages of different slices they have every night, and I think slices start at 11 o'clock, and
nice.
It's a great nightcap place. There's been plenty of times I've been sitting at home and said, hey, you know what, let's go to Big Tomato.
That's sweet.
Yep.
So, not only do you do the pizza thing, I mean, we can definitely come back to the pizza thing, but you also do a lot of. You're a big pro wrestling fan, and you have been for quite a while. And I've seen. This is the crazy thing. You and I just recently became friends on Facebook, and I've seen that you've been to shows and been to past shows, and. Over the last 10 years or so, I don't know how I haven't run into you once before.
Well, I'm sure we've been at many of the same shows, just haven't noticed.
Exactly. Yeah. Or, just never said hi to one another. But, I mean, let's talk a little bit of pro wrestling here. So, I mean, there's 2 companies I would say I go to the most in Iowa, and it was 3X Wrestling and Impact Pro Wrestling.
Yep.
And I'm sure you've been to plenty of those shows. Impact, it seems like you've been to a lot more of those than 3X from the small talk we had before the podcast. But what kind of got you started into enjoying pro wrestling?
I don't know. I think I'm the right age, so I'm 38. So I was born in 1980, the greatest year ever for heavy metal, by the way. We can get to that later. But 1980 was the year of heavy metal. I think that's why I like it so much because 80 had so many great releases. But anyways.
Yep.
1985 is when I got into wrestling, so I was 5 years old, and I have never missed anything since then. It's been like one of those things, it's a constant in my life. It's like something that brings me back to whatever. It's just like it's a constant. It's always there.
Oh, yeah.
And I had a couple of waivers a little bit, maybe in 94, 95. It was a little bad. I still taped it. I'd fast forward and watch it. And then I got back into it pretty huge in the mid and late 90s with ECW. I remember as a kid, I bought DirecTV just for my room in my parents' house, and I paid for DirecTV just so I could get the Sunshine Network to watch ECW back then. But always just loved it. I loved the over-the-topness of it. Ultimate Warrior was my favorite. A lot of people don't like Warrior, have things he wasn't the greatest, but to me, just being the age I am, I think he just meant so much to me. I got a full fathead life-size in my basement of Ultimate Warrior. I got Ultimate Warrior stuff all over the place. I mean, I don't know. I think the bright colors, the heavy metal music, the physique on him. I mean, he was ripped out of his mind.
Yeah, totally.
Just something about that, draws in a kid of my age at that time. And still to this day, I think of Warrior, the intensity and the way he talked. I mean, it gets you pumped up, gets you fired up for your job. I don't know. It seems kind of lame, I guess, to some people, but something about I got Ultimate Warrior in my office at work. It's just you look to the Warrior. What would the Warrior do? But got into wrestling and followed it through high school, followed it through college. I met Troy Peterson of Impact Pro Wrestling back in 2004, probably, and
nice.
We hit it off. We both have the same last name, no relation. So and anybody that has the O-N, I always love the O-N Petersons. That's how you spell it.
That's how you're supposed to spell it.
That's how you're supposed to spell it. But Troy and I hit it off. We've been friends, 15, 16 years now since then, and went to tons of shows down when they were in Delta, and became friends with a lot of the guys. Tony Sly and Devin Carter, AJ Smooth, a lot of those guys, good friends to this day, and still see them all the time at the shows. Obviously getting out of college, you start your work career, you get married, you have a family with kids. You can't get around as much as you used to, but still made shows every once in a while. Definitely the Hall of Fame show is the big one for IPW in July up in Waterloo. Cheap plug for Troy out there, but everybody ought to look into that one. It's a huge show.
Yeah, I'm not one to just interrupt you here, but that's a dark horse of an amazing show that people don't know about. Like, you can go to that Hall of Fame show, and it's every summer near the 4th of July.
Yeah, it's like a week or 2 weeks after the 4th of July usually.
And there's dozens of wrestling talent folks there. I mean, between like the one year there was like Larry Hennig was there, and Bulldog. Vachon.
Mad
Dog Vachon. Yep. Oh God, I mean,
Baron Von Raschke.
B. Brian Blair.
A lot of the AWA legends.
Dan Severn was there one year. Road Warrior Animal. I mean, Edge has been there. Scott Steiner. I mean, it's. Every year, there's going to be at least 4 or 5 ridiculously big names there, along with some of your favorites from the 80s. And it's, like I said, it's dark horse amazing. The first one I went to, I was like, how did I not go to these before, And then, after you go to 5 or 6, you're almost so starstruck by all the people that you're just eventually just like, it's another famous person. What's up? And then you're just like, all right, see ya. Like I at the last couple, I didn't even take pictures with people anymore. It was just like, just go say hi to them and stuff like that. One of my favorite stories about going to those shows was the very first one I went to. I talked to Larry Hennig for like 20 minutes. Yeah. And then, we were just sitting there hem-hawing about like how awesome it is that this thing happens and all the people that are coming in and how cool it is that this thing's happening. And then he walks away and someone's like, what are you talking to Larry Hennig for? And I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, that's Larry Hennig. I'm like, oh, son of a bitch. The guy is so nice. And
unfortunately, he just died recently. But he was a funny guy. He was always holding court and talking. I give Troy huge props. A few years back, Terry Funk was in, and outside Ultimate Warrior, Terry Funk was my other favorite. I'll never forget the Flair Funk I Quit match from 1989. I was actually eating at a pizza place with my family. I remember this to this day. I lived 2 miles from that pizza place. Clash of the Champions was starting at 7. And we were under the gun. It was taking forever for food. And I said, Dad, I got to go. And I sprinted 2 miles home just to get home in time for the Clash of Champions for that. But I got to spend 2 full days with Terry Funk. I was kind of his handler for the weekend.
That's
Troy
awesome.
knew how much I loved Terry. And and let me do that. And I got to hang out with Terry and shoot the breeze with Terry for 2 full days. I mean, it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, man.
But this year, I mean, the last few years, the WWE tryout is a big thing they have there every year. So they bring, people from all over the country come, and Jerry Briscoe, J.J. Dillon, they do the talent evaluations. It's always huge. And with Jerry Briscoe's tie-in, they've been bringing WWE stars every year.
Yep.
There's some names being kicked around. Just Troy might have told me, but I'm not going to tell them now. But
yeah, don't let the cat out of the bag on that one.
This year should be a big one if it all rings true. WWE, it's all on schedules, injuries, that kind of stuff. But, the last few years they've had Chad Gable was up there.
Ricochet was
right
there before he got signed.
Yeah, right before he got signed. Big E was there a couple years ago.
Yeah.
There's a lot of the guys that are up and comers. I mean, Big E wasn't the huge superstar he is now. I mean, he was on his way.
Yep.
But they've had some really good talent in here the last few years, and this year is going to be pretty awesome if it all holds true. So
yeah, that Impact Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame show. That's the other thing that's really cool. That Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame in Waterloo. I mean, it's not just pro wrestling. There's amateur wrestling stuff there too, but there's some awesome stuff in there. Yeah. They team up with Rob Schamberger. Mm-hmm. He does a lot of art out of Kansas City. A lot of people in the pro wrestling community, whether or not they know that they know him, they've seen his art. They know
sure.
It's crazy how many people are like, oh, I know, I've seen these.
You look at all the recent up until the last couple of sets, the WWE Mattel figures have had his artwork in the figures, on the packaging. So a lot of people know it. You'll know it when you see it. It's one of those kind of things.
Yeah, and it's like one of those crazy things where I didn't realize. I mean, I knew he was getting really big, but it wasn't until I was walking through a Walmart one day and I was like, "Holy crap! His name's on all these action figures." That's friggin' nuts.
Yep.
So props to him for going for the dream and sticking with it. So you kind of through Troy got your way into the indie wrestling scene and started hanging out with some of the wrestlers, going to the shows, kind of getting a little more chummy with everyone. And one of the things I think I like the most about the pro wrestling scene is there's a lot of community in there. It's a lot of times it catches a lot of flack because there's a lot of infighting, but there's a huge community there, and everyone, for the most part, supports each other a lot. Yeah. And it's one of the coolest things, like you said. I used to go to at least one wrestling show every single week. I mean, it was almost like once a week I would go to a show, sometimes twice on a weekend. And it was nothing for me to drive to Des Moines and then drive to Kansas City the next night for a show and then come back or something. It was nothing new to me to do that. But as of late, I haven't been able to make it to too many shows. And it's just, I mean, some of it's by choice and some of it's by default because I'm so busy. I don't know. We were talking a little bit earlier while we were eating some pizza about how I just recently went back to school, so I'm just busier than I've ever been in my life. But on the rare chance that I do make it to a show, it's pretty awesome seeing some of these guys' faces light up. And it's wild to me that a wrestler, the person that I went to go see, will see me at a show and be like, "Oh, holy cow, you're here!"
Yeah,
and so they know the fans that are there to watch them every single week, especially at those indie shows, and they grow just as attached to you as you do to them.
Yeah, they definitely appreciate the people they see week in, week out, or month in, month out, and get to know them. They're personable. You can hang out with them, talk to them. That's how I became friends with a lot of them. They just shooting the breeze with them. It's not, let's say you go to your WWE show, you're not going to get to go talk to the guys. You're not going to get to go hang out, but here you can. And the nice thing about the local scene too, is they do bring in some big names, and then you're going to see guys that are on their way up. Like, you referenced earlier, Ricochet. He's now on Raw, SmackDown, everything, but he was, in IPW's ring, a year, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Seth Rollins is one that comes to mind. How many shows did I see him throughout the Midwest for years? And now look at him, like one of the biggest guys in the world for wrestling. So it's cool. You never know who you're going to see or who you're going to meet. And
just the other thing is, I get that a lot of people draw the parallels of you can go listen to music on the radio and that would be like the equivalent of WWE wrestler. And then if you go to a bar and listen to a band, some people turn their nose up at it, but maybe it comes from me playing music or just appreciating the entertainment value of it. But I enjoyed going to see indie wrestling so much more than WWE because it seemed like everything was more personable. Even if a heel was insulting you to your face, it just seems like there's so much more connection there because there's only a couple hundred people in the building,
and that was always some of my favorite things, where you just felt so much more connected to the actual show that was going down.
For sure.
Just for that simple fact.
I mean, it's a good parallel. I mean, you think of like going to the Rolling Stones is like going to the WWE. It's a huge show. It's expensive.
Yep.
It's good. They're both great.
Yep.
But then you go to an indie wrestling show, which might be like going to a smaller band or a local band.
Yep.
Great too. Total different experience. Obviously going to be a little lighter on your wallet, but a lot personable and get to hang out. And it's two different things. They're both good. But,
Yeah.
I
mean, there's a lot of bang for your buck in going
For
to
sure.
an indie wrestling show. Another thing we were talking about while we were eating was you've definitely been to enough shows that you can probably attest to this. But I was talking about how, over the course of 5, 6, 7 years, going to 50 shows a year or so, you get to watch so many people from around the state grow and get better at their art form that they have, and so many of these wrestlers get so much better that. Like I said, I went a couple of years without going to a show, and then you show back up at one, and somebody that you thought was a novice now fits in so well that it's like, how is this guy ever that much of a beginner at one point in time?
Yeah.
And I'm not going to name names, but hats off to everybody that's out there training these guys and gals to go out there and wrestle, because
it's all about putting your time in, paying your dues. I mean, the parallel with music's always there too, because it's the same as some of those bands. Your first gig you probably ever did probably wasn't the best gig of your career.
No, sir. No.
I'm sure that's a story in itself, but you get better, you keep honing your craft, you keep at it, you start to learn to work an audience, and before you know it, you're at the top of your game.
Yeah, no kidding. The parallels that are there are almost insane. I mean, obviously, like Mick Foley was one of the first people to coin the phrase "the real world's faker than wrestling," and that drew a lot of light to the parallel between pro wrestling and almost everything else.
Yeah.
In all honesty, there's a lot of parallels between a lot of things.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of truth to be told to the way that pro wrestlers act and get treated on a social scale, and then you translate that into almost any other entertainment form. Mm-hmm. It's there. I mean, Darren Aronofsky made the movie The Wrestler, and that drew the parallel between a wrestler that was past his prime and a stripper that was past her prime, and how they both got treated poorly for no longer being in their prime, and the parallels between the things they had to do to try to achieve what they once had. And that's something else that the parallels that are there for a reason, but I think a lot more of it comes to light in pro wrestling because they break the fourth wall so much more.
Yeah.
Like, they're more willing to discuss those things openly than most other places, or even throw them into storylines.
Yeah.
And I mean, maybe that's one of the things I took to so much about it, because I mean, I started watching pro wrestling in the late 90s, we'll say. It was about 96 or 7.
Yep.
And that was kind of like you said, when ECW started, kind of just, they broke the fourth wall. They called people out. They said, this guy's supposed to
change the game.
Yeah, this guy was supposed to be wrestling for this company, and they said no, so he's here now. And the guy would show up and he would just crap talk all over ECW, saying he deserved better than to be in some bingo hall.
Yep.
And I mean, I think because they started breaking that fourth wall was what really kind of drew me in, because I started watching WWE at that point in time, and it was, they obviously copied ECW to an extent, and it was the same deal where they'd bring guys in from other companies for a few months and it didn't work out, and then they'd make fun of them, and I mean, you would get to see the new guys get hazed a little bit even on TV.
Yep.
And like one that comes to my mind is Public Enemy.
Yeah. The APA killed them, didn't
they? Dude, the Dudley Boys did what Public Enemy couldn't do, and that was stand up through about 90 APA beatings.
Yeah.
And it sucks that Public Enemy didn't make it, because I enjoyed Public Enemy, honestly.
It's tough, it's paying your dues, like in everything. It's all parallel, but that's what that was. You got to pay your dues.
Yeah, and I mean,
and how do you take that?
I mean, and that comes back to, like, if you look at Farouk and Bradshaw, Farouk had to be a blackjack first.
Bradshaw,
and then and then
Justin Hawk
Bradshaw,
then he was
Justin
then he
Hawk
was a Blackshaw,
yeah. I mean, he just got stuck with some
Yeah,
some
and even
dorky.
the APA, that got him kind of known, I guess, the most. But then he had his true calling at the end as JBL, kind
JBL.
of a modern day Ted DiBiase $1 Million Man type gimmick in
Yeah,
a way.
I like that. I like that description of it.
Yeah,
It was like a Texas millionaire guy.
yeah, pretty much like a J.R. Ewing from Dallas, and that's kind of all wrapped into one. And that's got him a world title and got him to the next level where he was just Bradshaw tag team wrestler before.
Yeah.
It's just taking a little bit of yourself and moving it to the next level. And
It's crazy. We were talking about peaks and valleys and watching wrestling, and that right there, when Bradshaw when his world title reign was over, believe it or not, that was when I started getting less and less entertained with wrestling. I mean, that was obviously when like Eddie Guerrero died, and then the whole Chris Benoit thing, and then there was a whole handful of retirements, and the wrestling world kind of shifted really, really big during that time period.
And I had a dip then too.
And a lot of people leaned on indie wrestling to fill in the holes where WWE was dropping the ball.
Exactly right.
And I'm not trying to call anybody out, but I mean, like, I can only turn on SmackDown and watch the Basham brothers so many times. And it's nothing against the Bashams, but like, it just felt like everything was glitzed and glamored more. And they tried to steal your eyes with flash instead of actually putting good storylines and talent in front of you.
I was the same way. I was, I have never missed a Monday Night Raw. I mean, there are over 1,000 episodes. I've never missed one. I've always, and I've probably saw 99% of them as they happen for the most part. But during that time, that was the dip. One of my dips in wrestling. I would still record it, but I would watch it on fast forward and stop every once in a while. So I'd get through a 3-hour show in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Funny thing now is, which got me back into it more, is my daughter is 8 years old. She absolutely loves pro wrestling, and it's like bringing me back to when I was a kid. She's into it huge, so it's hilarious how into it she is. I mean, she won't let me fast forward through anything. Yeah. And it's awesome. I was telling you the story from the other night about we were up till 3 a.m. and she loves the Royal Rumble, and she was watching old Royal Rumbles.
Yep.
And it's 3 a.m. I'm like, Elle, we got to go to bed. And just one more. And I'm thinking back to myself when I was younger. If I said, boy, if my kid, son or daughter ever wanted to stay up all night watching wrestling, I'd be all about it. And here I am, the old man. No, we got to go to bed. I just never thought I would be there, but here I am.
Yeah. 16-year-old you is just like, what are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. But boy, 3 a.m. it's a long time for an old man like me.
So let's talk WWE. What's your favorite pay-per-view of most of the pay-per-views? I mean, obviously they now have like a Hell in the Cell pay-per-view.
Yeah.
They still do an Elimination Chamber.
Yeah.
So I mean, like they gimmicked out their pay-per-views a little bit. But which one's your favorite?
Still as a kid, my daughter loves it too. Something about the Royal Rumble was always fun. I remember as a kid when Axe drew number 1 or Axe and Smash were 1 and 2.
Yep.
I remember just being like, holy cow.
What
you
are
never
they gonna
thought
do?
you'd see that. And then Warrior and Hogan crossing each other's paths for the first time ever in the Rumble.
Yeah.
That was like, as a little kid, I never thought I'd see this, which obviously carried into WrestleMania 6, which definitely the high point of my wrestling fandom. And I remember I was, obviously I said earlier, I'm a huge Warrior fan, but most were Hulk fans, at least in my neighborhood, in my school and everything. And I even remember my parents saying, oh, Warrior's never going to win and all this. And they didn't like wrestling, but I went absolutely crazy when Warrior won. I mean, that was I remember jumping up and down, throwing everything and screaming and yelling, but probably the Royal Rumble is probably my favorite. Get back to the question. It's just something about it. It's just cool. It's something different. WrestleMania is always fun, but boy, the last few years, WrestleMania is like 6-7 hours long. It's a long time.
Yeah, man. It's a long time to sit and wait to get all the way through a show. I understand like the pageantry and everything else, but I feel like they could do with like a 3 or 4 hour WrestleMania tops and call it good enough.
Yeah.
And I get it that they got a lot of people on the roster and you got to get everyone a shot. And you get the pre-shows and how are we going to squeeze everyone in because they're all coming anyways? There's no reason to have them all show up to WrestleMania town, wherever it happens to be at that year. And so, I mean, they created like the Andre the Giant Battle Royal,
they got a women's Battle Royal
to
as well.
stuff as many people in there as they can. And it's cool because the fun part about that is they get to like bring in some NXT people every now and then and stuff. But that was also the fun part about the Royal Rumble. Was the Royal Rumble was always like 28 or 29 guys from WWE And then all of a sudden it's just like, and here's Jeff Jarrett from the NWA, and you're like, wait, what?
Yep,
Like, who is this guy?
I remember back, gosh, was it 2002, 2004, something like that? I remember Mr. Perfect came back.
Yeah.
I mean, that was an awesome one. I don't know if I must not have got out ahead of time or whatever. And then he was into like the final 3 or 4 of that Rumble.
Yeah,
and
he was.
I remember sitting back thinking, holy cow, he's going to win.
Yeah.
And I missed that. Obviously, the element of surprise doesn't happen like it used to, obviously.
Yeah. That's one thing I kind of tried to. I distanced myself from all the, the Bleacher Reports, the Drudge Sheets, whatever you want to call it, the dirt sheets. I distanced myself the best I could from those to try to preserve the element of surprise for a lot of wrestling, because it was nice to know that, like, oh, so-and-so might get signed, and so-and-so canceled all. They announced online that they canceled all the rest of their dates because they have something else coming up, and obviously they got signed, you know. So you find out the stuff before you actually, should, and especially like the who's coming out at the Royal Rumble, this year or last year or whatever. And there's nothing against like, I could deal without seeing like Sergeant Slaughter or a whole bunch of older dudes, but at the same time, it's cool when they come out,
I mean, it's cool for like, they're in and out in a minute and a half or something. It's cool.
Yeah.
I don't mind seeing it for that. You don't want to see a long 10, 15, 20-minute match with a Sergeant Slaughter at this point.
Yeah,
but,
no kidding.
some of those guys have something quick, but, they've always thrown weird guys into. I remember, was it 1990 or 91? Carlos Colon, of all people. They throw the weirdest guy. I'm like, what is this about?
They would always bring. It seemed like they'd always bring somebody from south of the border up too, and it was super cool when they do that. Like, bringing some dude from AAA or CIML or something.
Somebody you never saw or you maybe heard of. So a lot of people my age and older read a lot of the PWI wrestling magazines and stuff like that. Back then. We talked about it too. Is I can't imagine what my life would have been if I had a WWE Network as a kid. I would have never left the house. And kind of the equivalent to the WWE Network as a kid in a way was wrestling magazines. You'd get the Wrestler and Ring Insider and PWI, and that's the only time you'd ever see or hear from a lot of those people. You're like, oh, who's this guy? He's down in some Texas, and wherever. So. Yeah,
there's some guy named Mil Mascaris that he takes his mask off and he's got another mask.
Yeah, he's got 1,000 masks. Who is this guy?
It's just insanity. You're talking about like the back in the day, the equivalent of having WWE Network was the magazines.
Yeah.
And you also mentioned that you taped Raws. Did you end up taping over all your tapes?
No. I actually had a huge VHS collection. I mean, official releases and just tons of stuff. I taped every ECW episode off the Sunshine Network. I had it all forever. And a few of the buddies that are wrestlers, I gave some of the tapes to and used to lend to them, but I think I ended up throwing them all away. And I replaced a lot of it with DVD. The one thing at ECW I really miss, because it's cool to see them on the network, but none of that original music is there. And seeing the Sandman come out without Enter Sandman, it's just and New Jack without
I forget, but
what is it, Dr. Dre and California Love. Without hearing that when he comes out, it's not the same with that overdubbed cheesy music they got. So in a way, I wish I had my VHS tapes to get converted over to streaming or onto my computer or something. But
I mean, they had to. That was like the crazy cool thing about. Like ECW was so small and so not well known that they could get away with copyright infringement. And I hate to say it that way, but
it's true.
If you go to a local wrestling show, they're not making enough money to justify paying a company to have a wrestler come out to, you name it. I mean, AC/DC Back in Black or whatever, Justifiably, though, they should pay AC/DC for using their song in a public entertainment format, but it's understandable. Like, I get where they're coming from. If there's anywhere from 20 to 40 people in the crowd, it doesn't make sense to pay someone thousands of dollars. But like ECW would do that nonstop, air it on TV, nobody cared, and it just went on for years and years and years.
Like Miserlou by Dick Dale, ECW had that in their vignettes at the end of their, like, everybody giving their interviews. Dick Dale just died like a week ago. Bringing it all back together, but that was a crazy one, but they never paid for that. They just played it. But, in my mind, whenever I hear that song, I think of old school ECW.
Yeah. And I mean, shout out to WWE for buying the tapes and doing it correctly through all the copyright, necessities they needed to. They also didn't want to pay these artists and musicians. And I guess I don't blame them, because the amount of old wrestling that people are probably watching on WWE Network would probably rack up a pretty hefty bill just for music
I
alone.
can't imagine. If you think of ECW couldn't afford it, and WWE makes a million times more than ECW ever did, and they can't afford it.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
think of how much that would cost.
So, I mean, I get where you're coming from totally.
Yeah.
I miss having those old songs on there, and it's weird to like watch some of the old ECW on the network and be
Yeah.
like, wait, this isn't.
It really
this isn't
kind of
right.
ruins it for me. Even it shouldn't, but it really does.
Yeah, I've got some old ECW DVDs, and that's how that was my first introduction into really studying like what the heck was going on at the time, because it was, I would say, about 10 years ago or so. I was like, all right, let's plow through this ECW thing and see what all these years were about. So of course I go to the torrent sites and I download all the ECW, and I start buying DVDs so I can watch pay-per-views in good quality and actually kind of figure out what's going on. And then when you start turning on the network and you're like, whoa, wait a second, something's different about this.
Yeah.
Even as far as like they didn't delete it from the master mix. They like overdubbed some of it. So like they just pumped in fake crowd noise on top of.
Yeah. It just ruins it for me.
And yeah, the other thing I don't like is some of the chants that they had in ECW are not necessarily PG.
Not at all.
So some of those even they overdubbed into completely different chants. And it's unfortunate, but it is what it is.
Yeah,
and
I guess in hindsight, it's better you can at least watch it than not have it up there at all.
Yeah, bingo. Yeah.
That's basically how I kind of justify it.
Yeah, from a liability standpoint, it's probably all right if WWE has a network and their constituents don't want them. People that paid money to go see the show screaming into ambient mics, the most horrible things they could imagine. Man, ECW was special for where it was at and when it was at. It was like that end of the 2000s. I don't know if everybody was scared of Y2K, but I just feel like the general populace was kind of fed up with a lot of everything, and ECW was a personification of that.
Yeah, it was. It was total counterculture and totally different than anything else you ever saw, and I think a lot of people would have totally bowed out of wrestling permanently if it wasn't for ECW back then.
I mean, that's fans and talent.
Yeah.
I mean, there were so many people that were talented, and they were either on the WCW side or the WWE side.
Yeah, you think of Shane Douglas. He was totally blackballed from both. So where did he go? It was all the misfits basically out there, and it worked. It was just different.
I mean, think about it, even like a Steve Austin situation. Leaves WCW. It's not like he wasn't signed by WWF at the time, WWE, but he needed a place to go for a while to keep his relevance and keep the tools sharp or whatever, So, some of his stuff in ECW is super funny. He almost never wrestled.
I think he only had a handful of matches. It was all vignettes.
Yeah, he just came out there and crap talked, and that's what turned him into the guy that that everybody knows and loves is Stone Cold Steve Austin. And God, was it he called it like Monday NyQuil or something. It was just.
It was funny. Steve Austin's a weird one for me. As a kid, I was a huge WCW fan. Obviously, I liked Warrior and all that stuff in the WWF. I watched it all. I watched any wrestling I could get a hold of. ESPN used to have GWF and AWA. I used to watch that as a kid too. But WCW was just there was blood. The late '80s. The transition from NWA to WCW. I just the Midnight Express, the Rock and Roll Express, the Road Warriors. I mean, Sting. I loved all that stuff, and I was in the huge minority. Especially late 80s, early 90s. Everybody was WWF, which I did enjoy, but that WCW stuff back then was just awesome. And that's where I love Steve Austin. To this day, I prefer Stunning Steve Austin
with the camera?
Yeah. When he was a flying Brian Pillman, they became the Hollywood Blondes. But even before that, when he was Dangerous Alliance, and I loved that Steve Austin. And when he became the Attitude Era, it's just it wasn't the same for me. I don't know.
I feel the same kind of way because, while it happened, I remember, I was young enough where I was like, man, Steve Austin's just being a dick to everybody. Why does everybody like him so much? And it's like, you get older and you're like, oh, I totally get it, But then if you look back at the whole picture, you're like, man, he was way past his prime. He didn't throw any good moves out. It was just a brawler because he had neck surgeries
and issue with Owen almost paralyzed him and stuff, and he was basically just a brawler from then on.
Yeah, I mean his knees were blown out. He couldn't do almost anything. You almost never saw him jump off a turnbuckle. Throw a suplex. Take a power bomb. I mean, and that's the other thing that I kind of didn't realize that I didn't enjoy so much about him was the fact that he, like, another wrestler's full move set would
Yeah.
not apply to Steve Austin.
Yeah.
Because it's just
Yeah.
like, I do these 5 moves, and Austin's like, I can't do 3 of those,
Yeah.
you know? And,
Yeah.
and it's not nothing against Austin,
No.
because, you know,
It worked. At the end of the day, he made more money doing
dude,
that than ever. So, hey.
exactly. You know, he did so good with what he had. So, I mean,
but you go back to the early, USWA, GWF stuff and the early WCW stuff of his. I mean, totally different wrestler.
yeah,
More
totally.
scientific, more moves. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Like, you know. So today, for those of you that have already forgotten, I'm sitting down with the Iowa Pizza King. It's Kyle Peterson, and it's no relation to Troy for all the wrestling people that have tuned in. But you not only like pizza, you not only like wrestling, but we've also discovered that you like heavy metal.
Yeah.
So let's talk
Big
a little
time.
bit about music. You travel for your job,
Yeah.
and that also affords you the opportunity to be in big cities at the time that shows go on.
Yeah.
So what are some of your favorite bands? Or
I like you're saying, I got an 8-state area I travel, and lately this year's been tough. I've been stuck in the office, unfortunately, a lot this year. But I have to get to Kansas City, I got to get to Omaha, I got to get to Minneapolis, got to get to Chicago, Madison, Wisconsin. So I would go for work, and hey, I got to go within this week or so. Let's see what bands are playing, and I get a pizza. I get to go see a band, and I go to work the next day. I mean, it really works out. Better than just sitting in my hotel room.
yeah,
For sure. So bands. I talked earlier. I'm an '80s metal guy. My all-time favorite band is Motorhead. I
Nice.
absolutely love Motorhead. I mean, I've seen them 20 plus times. I went on both Motorhead cruises.
Oh,
I mean,
dang.
I love Motorhead, and I've gotten into so many bands because of them opening for Motorhead, and
Yeah.
I really miss the old Motorhead. Every year you knew there was going to be a new album or a live album and a big tour.
Yep.
And I would see him 3 or 4 times on that tour.
Yeah, man.
So I really missed that. It hit me pretty hard when Lemmy died. I mean, you knew it was coming. I remember the Motorhead cruise was 2 months before he died. And I remember the last night of the cruise, they played their final show at the cruise. And I went back to my hotel room with my wife, and I said, you know what? I just got this feeling I'm never going to see Lemmy again. I said, I got to go see him. I know he's playing video poker and blackjack and stuff. He plays those.
That was like all he.
What do you know? I walk in the casino. There he is sitting there. I mean, he had his guards and stuff with him because obviously, if it was a normal casino, you'd be probably fine.
Yep.
But on his own cruise with 2,000 some people on there,
Yeah.
he can't really. He needs security at
Exactly.
that point. And I think Lemmy would have been cool enough to meet with anybody. He was always awesome. But he couldn't. But I got to sit there and look at him one last time, just knowing I just something said this is the last time I'm ever going to see him.
Yeah.
And I'm glad. The shows weren't as good at the end as obviously the Prime, and
Yeah.
he killed it to the end. I love every album. A lot of people say, "Oh, the Ace of Spades." I mean, he's so much more than the Ace of Spades.
Yeah.
I go on and on about Motorhead, but current bands I love. Clutch, I've loved Clutch for a long time. I remember I saw 14 shows in a row a couple years ago with
Jesus.
Clutch. There's a lot of new up and coming bands people probably haven't heard of unless you're in the deep circles of metal. But I love. There's a band called Gygax out there that used to be some of the members of Gypsy Hawk, if anybody remembers them. Night Demon's an upcoming band. I know you know Night Demon. I
Yep.
love Night Demon. I've seen them a ton.
Yeah, I got the opportunity to play with them last year. Actually, opened up for him with Three Finger Betty.
Yep.
That's a hell of a good.
And that's the great thing. I love the younger up and coming bands that are hungry, and they're playing. They're playing Minneapolis Monday. They're playing Des Moines on Tuesday, Kansas City on Wednesday, and Omaha on Thursday.
Yep.
That's old school. And that's Iron Maiden did that. I looked at the other day at an Iron Maiden tour schedule, and they went from like Des Moines to Fort Dodge. They played in Fort Dodge in like 1982 or 81.
What?
Yeah, I don't know where they played in Fort Dodge, but
Probably the Larimar Ballroom. I don't know.
I don't know. But you think back in the day, that's how bands did it. They played Davenport, Des Moines, Cedar Rapids, Fort Dodge, maybe Council Bluffs or Omaha. I mean, they toured and hit a lot of towns. And these young bands are doing that, and living in Des Moines is tough for the bigger bands because a lot of time they fly over Des Moines. They go to Chicago and then they go to Kansas City, or they go to Chicago, they go to Minneapolis. And Des Moines, unless it's the second leg of a tour, most likely you're not getting one of those shows.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's tough, but
That's one of the most unfortunate parts about being around here. I do feel like it's starting to change
I think
a
so too.
little bit.
A little.
But
There's been a lot of progress. But, and yeah, the nice thing is if you live in Des Moines, Kansas City's only 3 hours. Minneapolis is 3 hours.
Yeah.
Omaha's 2 hours.
Yeah.
Chicago's 5. It's a little bit of a drive. But, I'm going to Chicago in, gosh, I think it's a month for the Misfits.
Oh, nice. Cool.
Obviously they're not going to be what they used to be.
Yeah,
but
original lineup though,
yeah,
right?
I want to see, Jerry and Danzig and it's a good undercard too for it with Venom Inc. Venom. It's no Cronus Venom, but it's Tony Dolan. Great band. Not a lot of people probably check them out, but they're great. And then Power Trip, young up and coming band. Really recommend checking them out. A couple years ago, Nightmare Logic was their new one. I mean, awesome new thrash metal. I mean, a shot in the arm to music. I mean, I really recommend checking them out. They're
piece
opening.
of Power Trip.
Power Trip,
All
yeah.
right,
And they're actually playing Vaudeville Muse like 2 nights before.
Oh, cool.
That Misfits. They're doing a little run beforehand. So
Well, maybe I'll have to go check that one
yeah,
out,
I think
man.
it's like a Thursday, April 26th or whatever that Thursday is around there.
That's cool.
I definitely recommend. It's old school. It reminds me of old school Exodus a little bit. You got stage
sweet.
divers. You got
Yep.
It's crazy. So definitely worth checking them out.
That's awesome. So it's kind of crazy. I'm still a little bit blown away that you and I actually like haven't ever met or talked or become.
Yeah, did we just become best friends?
Yeah, well, maybe. High fives.
That's right.
But yeah, I do feel like the two of us have kind of like
Lived parallel lives.
yeah, a little bit. Because we even talked about how your place of employment was the same as my place of employment through most of my.
Both worked
youth.
14 years for a large retailer
Yes.
in the Iowa area.
I bet you can. I give you 2 guesses, and the first one doesn't count. That's. I'm sure you can figure out which one it is.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of crazy to think that. I mean, is it just because we're in Iowa that our lives are parallel to one another, or is it just because of the choices that are available here are?
Yeah.
Is every town here a cookie cutter of the next one, big and small? Because I mean, you're from bigger city. I'm from a smaller town.
Yeah.
And you and I both grew up with thin crust, square cut pizzas. We got into pro wrestling. We both like metal music, and it's like, how does this all happen and seem to be that way in the small town area? Because I mean, it's not like everyone in Iowa is exactly like us, but it seems like there's a lot of us.
It's funny you say that, but I don't know if it's ingrained into the Midwestern male, maybe. I don't know, because you think back to the old days of wrestling, the AWA and Central States was such a huge part of wrestling in the Midwest. Everybody watched it. I think it was on like Saturday afternoons and Saturday nights. Everybody, I remember my great grandpa was nonstop about it. You know? It seems to kind of skip a generation a little bit. But everybody grew up knowing, and you hear everybody, all these old guys, Bulldog Bob Brown, you hear that all the time.
Yeah, Bulldog. That's if you talk to my old man, that's all he says. Oh, Bulldog Bob Brown there at the show. It's like,
exactly.
No, sorry.
Harley Race there. I mean, you hear some of those old ones that were central stalwarts or whatever. But then you go back to the 70s of hard rock, where metal, I always say, was born out of hard rock, basically. And Iowa, the Midwest, was huge for hard rock.
Oh yeah,
and that's where Kiss Alive 1. Part of that was in Davenport, is where that was recorded.
Oh really?
So I mean, they've always had a strong rock base out of Iowa, the Midwest, and then you go to pizza. The pizza in the Midwest, square cut, cheesy.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's like ingrained into us a little bit.
I wonder if it has something to do with like just where all the pieces of the puzzle fell, where like most of us are like, I want to say most of us are Scandinavian-ish.
Yeah.
But it's like we're either Scandinavian or German, for the most part around here, and it's that mix of those two.
And where is one of the most popular places for heavy metal music in the world? It's right there in Germany. Yeah. I mean, 2 of the biggest, and that's me, Peterson. It's Swedish, and
yeah. And I mean, I'm mostly Swedish, and what I'm not, I'm mostly German. So it's kind of crazy when you think about that. Like Germany has like Halloween, Gamma Ray, Scorpions.
So many. Accept is one of my favorites. Creator, Destruction. I mean, we can go on and on.
Yeah, and I mean, if you want to lump all of the Scandinavian countries into one, we could just keep going along for a long time. I mean, earlier today we had mentioned Enforcer. I mean, they're going on a tour. this upcoming. I mean, it's just in a
fall.
couple
It's
months.
like September, October.
Is it September?
Yeah, it's a ways out, but
yeah, I mean,
we were talking 53 shows in 53 days. I think it is. It's crazy.
yeah. And I mean, like, we were wondering, like, do they just have like a 60-day visa and they're packing it in as
Gotta get it all
absolutely
in.
tight as they can? Because I mean, I've been to tons and tons and tons and tons of concerts, and I mean tons and tons and tons of wrestling shows and stuff like that. But there's still always new bands, new wrestlers, new everything that you kind of still want to go see. And as much as I still go to shows, I mean, I like the last show I went to was the Strawberry Girls. And like nobody knows who that is, but it's like math rock meets some sort of like gent music of some sort. It's tough to describe. There's no words. But like those are the kind of shows I seek out now, is the shows with the bands that I know are on the way up.
Yeah.
And if they aren't, they should be kind of deal,
Yeah.
you know? So like, I would definitely put Enforcer in that group that you
I'm right
mentioned
there
earlier, you know, with like your Bewitchers,
Bewitcher, Night Demons we talked about, but even like
Yeah.
Warbringer, who Enforcer's playing with,
Yeah.
you know, they've been around, I don't know, 5 albums, maybe something like that, but they're another awesome. There is good metal still out there. There's good music still out there. It's just not as easy to find as it once was. You got to work for it to find those bands, unfortunately. You know, I go back to, I was 9 years old. It was the same year Ultimate Warrior won the heavyweight title. But that's when I found heavy metal. My first band I ever loved was Faith No More. I still love Faith No More to this day.
Yeah.
And they had on the Real Thing album. Epic was a huge hit for them, but the whole album was awesome. Surprise You're Dead. There's some great ones on there.
Yeah.
But they did a cover of War Pigs, Black Sabbath, War Pigs, obviously. Well, 9-year-old Kyle didn't know Black Sabbath from a hole in the wall. And that ended up, I saw that, and I saw there was a cassette tape of Black Sabbath Paranoid. It had War Pigs on it, and bam, I got it. And away I went from there in the metal world.
You know, it's kind of crazy that a lot of these parallels we keep having coming up, where like I also opened up for Chuck Mosley of Faith No More at a show, and that was unfortunately right before he died.
I was going to be at that show, and I had an emergency meeting in Chicago, and I missed it.
Yeah, the show was good. It was great to see him and stuff, but it was also kind of tough to see him because you knew that something was up.
Yeah.
And that was like the toughest part about the show, I think, was
it was like a week or 2 weeks later he died. After
yeah, and he was super nice. I mean, he was. I don't think I've met very many famous people who are outwardly just a dick. You know, like most famous people are pretty nice.
Yeah.
Most of them are.
Yeah.
But I mean, like Chuck was the kind of guy that was just like, he came up and shook your hand first, and he's just like, hey, you know, you're opening for us, so great. Thank you for doing this for me and all this other stuff. And oh, hey, I like your gear. You care if I use this thing here, you know? So I loaned him a pedal to use for the night. So it's just kind of neat stuff where it's like, yeah, I don't care, go ahead and use it, you know? And so it's so weird that you and I have so many parallels where like some of your favorite bands are people that I
obviously went back and got those first 2 Faith No More albums with Chuck because I didn't know of them before, but I love those albums too. A lot of people don't. I feel bad for Chuck. You know, Mike Patton is something crazy. I mean, it's tough.
Yeah.
I can't say I think Faith No More made the right decision there, obviously.
Oh, totally, yeah.
But Chuck, I mean, totally an underdog, and feel bad what happened to him at the end of his life, that's for sure.
Yeah, it was such a sad deal. And I mean, that's something else that like I never really thought that I don't consider myself an entertainer, even though to some aspect I guess I am. I got a podcast, I'm in a couple bands, you know, that whole nonsensical stuff of just hobbies that have gone awry.
Yeah.
But when you actually get to run into some of these people who are really actually entertainers, who went out and did it, and they have been doing it, and they've been through this war of attrition with themselves and the general populace to just keep going out there and performing, and to see some of them have passed away, or like we've talked a little bit about the roller coaster ride of I mean, just like WWE in general, and just everything. Everybody goes on one of those throughout the course of their life, you know. And it's weird to sit back and have actually been playing these shows with people or seen them throughout so many years that you can actually watch people go on their own roller coasters, and it's kind of humbling to yourself to think that, like, you know, I myself am probably going through the same things this person is, but it's not as obvious to me because it's me.
Exactly,
you know?
right. I was just going to say that. It's a roller coaster of life. Everybody, you know, you see these other people, well, heck, I'm probably on that same thing. Like, oh, I got a job here, a promotion here, I started a family here, lost my job here, or whatever it might be. Everybody's on that roller coaster. I guess when it's your own, you don't look at it as hard. You know, I always think back, I would have loved to have been a wrestler as a kid. I was like, gosh, I could be a wrestler. And, you know, getting out of college, I said, hey, what do I want to do? Well, I went to college.
Yeah.
You know, it was probably the right decision at the end of the day.
Yeah.
but I would have loved to have been a wrestler or a musician or something like that, or followed one of my passions. But I went to college, and then I got a real job and had an opportunity. I worked out hard. I was, a pretty rock hard 260 pounds. I looked the part of a wrestler, but I just never pulled the trigger because, I got a really good job here. I got a chance for promotion. And did I make the right decision? Yeah, probably. I'm not a gambler or anything, but at the end of the day, I don't know, took the money and ran or something, I guess you'd say. But, you're always going to say, what if? What if I would have went after it? And that's why I respect all these young bands out there and indie wrestlers.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, maybe I'm not getting paid at all, but I'm driving 4 hours to a show. And same for a band. Hey, maybe I'm just getting a percentage of the bar or whatever. But I'm doing it for the love of it and to get better and hopefully better myself and get the bigger opportunity. It's about paying dues.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Even in like our work life, I remember, starting off at a major chain in Iowa and working as, cans and bottle boy to sacker to checker to department manager to, assistant manager of the store. And then same thing with working for some big snack food companies and bread companies, starting as a merchandiser and a sales rep and a fill-in sales rep into management and now up to an executive level. It's just working hard and paying your dues in whatever you do. I mean, I guess the answer is whatever you do it well and do the best you can at it.
Yeah, I mean,
give it your all.
That is genuinely just some great advice for life. Yeah. And I mean, just from knowing you for the amount of time that I have, I feel like just from getting to know you the little bit, I've noticed that you find something you like, you stick with it, and you just keep going with it until you've got it in a place where you like it, whether it be your musical enjoyment that you draw from like all the music, or just going to wrestling shows, being a fan. You decided not to be a wrestler, but you're still close to the community. I mean, all of it. It's
being passionate about whatever you do and having a passion, for day in, day out stuff. I'm a little addictive personality is what I got. I mean, I know I'm basically straight edge. I don't drink, I don't smoke, never done drugs, nothing ever, because I know the way my personality is, it wouldn't go well. It wouldn't end well for me. It just wouldn't. And, I'll put that into a band or whatever. I love the band. I'm getting every CD the band ever did. I'm going to every show I can get to. I have a massive wrestling figure collection that I've worked on for a long time, and I can't just buy, I just like two guys out of this set. No, I gotta get the whole set. It's the way I am. It's full bore or no bore, I guess.
Yeah. And I mean,
it's worked so far.
Exactly. Like we had discussed how that can actually be a blessing and not a curse if you apply it in the correct way. And it seems like you're doing a pretty good job of it.
Like I'm on vacation this week from work, but I'm still checking my email for work every 5 minutes and taking phone calls and it's just what I do. So, there are 30 years or so, I'll retire and can have all the time in the world to do, hopefully, everything I want to.
We're getting pretty close to an hour. We've discussed probably the most hot button issues that we had kind of thought about discussing, which was obviously pizza. Because that's so
it brings us to the table.
Exactly.
No pun intended.
Yeah. I mean, then there was pro wrestling, which is something that was really, really big in my life and still is very big in your life, And, shout out to all the indie wrestlers out there doing the things they do, because I don't think you guys realize how much entertainment value you're adding to some of our lives. And I mean, there was years and years and years where that was, if I was going to put money into something, it was probably either going to be a pro wrestler's pocket via a t-shirt sale or a promoter's pocket via a ticket sale, and props to all the, everyone, because wrestlers come and go, promotions come and go, but like those memories are going to last forever. And I mean, it goes that way for going to concerts and stuff like that. You're just going to remember it forever, and so if you got anybody else you want to give any shout outs to while we're still here?
I guess I better say hi to my wife, Angie, and my daughters, Emma and Elle.
All right.
They're always part of me, and our dogs. We got a couple of 2 new puppies, Corgi Poos.
Oh, nice.
Believe it. So named Lemmy.
Of course.
Of course.
Yep.
Lemmy and Domino.
I was going to say Lemmy and Lemmy.
Yeah, Lemmy and Lemmy. Both Lemmy. It's crazy. It just worked out.
Sit, Lemmy. Yeah, there. Good dogs.
Yep.
Just trying to save your breath.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So I just want to say thanks again for swinging up to my hometown of Humboldt, Iowa, and stopping into Pasquale's and grabbing a slice or 5 with me.
Yeah, I mean, we did some damage. I don't want to know how many calories we put. We should say we had obviously the Control, the sausage pepperoni, and then
Yep.
we went with my favorite of the outside regular, the taco.
Yes.
And Pasquale's is a great taco pizza.
Yeah.
It is actually one of my favorites, and it's been a long time since I've had it. Very, very good taco pizza. I strongly recommend that one. Don't get it with tomatoes.
Yeah.
Tomatoes don't belong. I think we can both agree on that.
Yes, we can.
Leave the tomatoes off the taco pizza.
Well, it's so funny. I was like, "Can I get the tomatoes on the side?" And then I was like, "Do you want anything taken off this and put on the side?" And you were like, "No, just I don't like the tomatoes either." And I was like, "All right, cool.
Yep.
All right." So we actually worked out pretty well.
It did. And that's the one thing I always get from people too on pizza. We talked about this too is, well, how do you like pizza if you don't like tomatoes?
Yeah.
Well, there's pizza sauce. That's tomato sauce. Yeah, it is. But it's not the same.
It's
Come on,
not the
people.
same thing.
Don't bring that to me anymore because
it's-
it is not the same as eating like a fresh tomato. It's nowhere near.
Yeah. Gosh,
So-
fresh tomato. Get out of town.
But
with
I would say, Pasquale's is one of the best. If you've never been there, get there. I'm gonna breaking the news here first.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give that an 8 slices out of 10.
Oh, nice.
Actually, a middle 8 slices out of 10. So that's a strong rating. It's definitely worth the drive on a Saturday or something. You need to come up here. I was shocked to hear they don't have their breakfast pizza on the menu. I don't
Yeah,
believe, which
that's
that's what's known to their frozen pizza. That's
Yeah,
the gold standard
yeah.
for breakfast pizzas.
Yeah, you are 100% correct on that. It's like you go places and everybody knows Pasquale's via the breakfast pizza.
Yep.
Or ironically, this is another crazy one. There's no shortage of small town bars in Iowa that have Pasquale's either
Yeah.
breakfast pizza, regular frozen pizzas, or even their sandwiches in the bar for
Yeah.
sale. And it's like that's wild.
It is.
I was in Des Moines the other day at a podcast meetup, and they had a promotion set up in the building for something that was going on, and it was some bar in Des Moines that had Pasquale's pizza. That was like their pizza they had there. I was like, how's it that you're a bar that's known for pizza, but you only cook Pasquale's frozen, And honestly, Pasquale's frozen is pretty darn good.
It's made with love up here in Humboldt. They got a crew working on them. It's not some not throwing Nestle Jack's pizza or whatever under the bus, but that's obviously a conveyor belt pizza made in a huge factory. This is actually done handmade and stuff. And it's a good frozen pizza. It's worth the extra couple of dollars for sure.
Oh yeah, totally.
I was telling you, I think I've had literally thousands of Pasquale's frozen pizzas in my life, working at the grocery store and demoing it every single weekend.
Yeah.
Thousands.
Yeah, totally, man. So I just want to say thanks again for swinging up here to join me for a bite and talk wrestling and music and pizza and all things that are the Iowa Pizza King. So
anytime.
So do you know off the top of your head what your Iowa Pizza King is? It at IA Pizza King?
Correct. Yep.
So it's at IA Pizza King on Facebook.
Yep.
Go there, give it a follow, give it a like.
And please, if you guys got any recommendations of places, I just got a recommendation for a place in Oskaloosa the other day. I mean,
cool.
I've been to a ton of them, but there's always sleeper ones, especially in small towns that I don't know about. So
yeah,
please send me.
Yeah, people in the small town, even big towns. Just I'm very a big proponent of people online reaching out to other people. Just shoot Kyle a message on at IA Pizza King and let him know where the good pizza's at, because I'm even interested to hear this. I tell you what, I'm not one to go online and go to these websites where people are like, my opinion matters the most. But Kyle's eating a lot of pizza. He's sometimes funny about how he reviews places. I like your style of how many pizza slices out of 10. Like I just dig a lot of what you're doing. So I'd believe him more than I believe anybody. So even if you got a pizza place somewhere, hit up Kyle and have him come over.
I'll definitely try. I'll be honest with the review, and everybody's got different tastes. It's just my opinion on it.
Yeah.
But, I'm nobody special, but I'm just putting it out there.
Oh yeah. So thanks again for joining me, man. I really appreciate it, and just thanks. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was the King. The King has left the building. Thanks again to Kyle for stopping by the podcast and for doing all the awesome things he does, because I definitely enjoy checking him out online and seeing what kind of places he's eating at. The pizza looks so good. You guys have no idea. You got to follow him online and check out all the pizza he's eating. It looks so delicious. Be sure to check out Audible Farm online. Did you guys know that you can go to www.audiblefarm.com? You can try it. Isn't it neat? Yeah, I bought a website. It's the first time I've ever actually done that. I've built dozens and dozens and dozens of websites throughout the course of my life, and this is the first website that I've ever actually bought the URL for. So check out audiblefarm.com. I'm serious. It's there. You can like us on Facebook too if you don't want to check out the website. We are on Facebook. We're also on Twitter. You can follow us on Twitter. You can follow us on Instagram. It's at Audible Farm. Real easy to remember. So we're all over there too. Subscribe to us on YouTube. We've got a YouTube channel that might be where you're listening to this right now. You can subscribe, then you can make sure you never miss out on another podcast again. Just go to YouTube and search for Audible Farm. We're there. We have podcasts. We've got band videos. There's more there. I've definitely done my fair share of things to the Audible Farm YouTube channel. There's tons of content down there, and I'm always looking to add more. Send us an email if you got any suggestions, want to drop us a line about something. Maybe if you want me to interview you. I don't know. Hit me up at audiblefarm@gmail.com. That's audiblefarm@gmail.com. So shoot me a line. I'd like to hear what you think. Leave us a review wherever you happen to be listening. Every podcast streaming service seems to have some way to review the podcast or the episode. So drop us 5 stars, leave it a like, share it if you want to. Thanks again to Kyle for coming on the podcast. I had such a great time sitting down with Kyle Peterson. It's not every day you get to sit down with royalty. So it's pretty awesome to have the king around. So I bet it's good to be the king. I really do. I wouldn't have any idea, but he does because he's the king. He's the pizza king. Thank you guys for listening. I really had a great time with this episode. I had a super great time sitting down with Kyle. It's just fun to meet these people and see what makes them tick. And Kyle was a fun guy. I could see myself and him hanging out quite a bit. We seem to be on the same wavelength. So thanks, Kyle, if you're tuning into your own episode. I really appreciate you stopping by and grabbing a slice with me. And thank you guys again for listening. This has been episode number 29 of the Audible Farm podcast, and I was your host. My name is Peter Stockdale. I'll catch you next week with an awesome episode once again. Peace.